Daniel Brooks, Jennifer said coldly, locking eyes with the man she once called her husband. Thomas paled. For the first time in 30 years, his secret had been exposed. I stood in my kitchen, the smell of chocolate from the birthday cake I'd baked all morning lingering in the air. Today was my 52nd birthday, and I'd pictured it quiet and simple, just me, Thomas, and a night in the house we'd built over 30 years. I'd spent hours on that cake, smoothing the frosting like it was a little ritual to mark another trip around the sun. But as the sunset faded through the window, a bad feeling crept in, the air in our suburban home growing heavier by the second. Thomas Reed, my husband, strolled into the dining room with a grin I couldn't read, half cocky, half secretive. He wore the white shirt I'd ironed that morning, hands in his pockets, looking way too relaxed. Then I heard the click of high heels on the hardwood, and there she was, Jessica Hayes, young, blonde, with sharp blue eyes, stepping in like she owned the place. My heart sank. She couldn't be older than 27 to 25 years my junior, and around her neck sparkled something I'd know anywhere, my grandma's diamond necklace. That necklace wasn't just jewelry. It was history, my grandma's, carried across an ocean when she fled Europe during World War II, its tiny diamonds shining like survival itself. Thomas told me 10 years ago he'd sold it to pay off the mortgage when his business tanked. I cried for a week but believed him, like I'd believed him for 3 damn decades. Seeing it on Jessica's neck hit me like a punch to the gut. "Happy birthday, Jen," Thomas said, his voice smooth but cold, like he was reading a script. "Thought it'd be the perfect time for you to meet Jessica. She's... well, you can figure it out." He grinned wider, clearly loving every second of this. "Tomorrow, my lawyer's dropping off the divorce papers. Jessica and I are gonna travel the world, live with my real love for once." I froze, still gripping the cake knife, its blade catching the chandelier light. I looked from Thomas to Jessica, then back to that necklace. Jessica shifted awkwardly, her fingers brushing the diamonds as if she knew they didn't belong there. The light hit them just right, throwing little rainbows on the walls I'd decorated for 30 years, every picture frame, every paint chip, every memory. It felt like my whole life was crumbling right there. "Thomas," I said, my voice steady in a way that surprised even me, "you said that necklace was gone. You said we needed the cash to save this house." I pointed at Jessica but kept my eyes on him. "So why's it on her?" He shrugged, like it was no big deal. "Jen, that doesn't matter anymore. What matters is the future. I've found what I want, and I'm not sorry." He stepped closer to Jessica, resting a hand on her shoulder, staking his claim. "She's everything you could never be." His words cut deep, but I didn't flinch. I'd spent too many years shrinking under that voice, the tone that used to silence me, make me doubt myself. Today, though, something shifted. A spark flared up inside me, one I'd buried long ago. "Funny thing, Thomas," I said, setting the knife down with a soft clink. "Just a few days ago, you had no idea I'd already won this divorce game." I smiled, not the weak one I'd faked for him before, but a sharp, knowing one. His face flickered, confidence turning to confusion, and Jessica stiffened beside him, her hands still on that necklace. "What the hell's that supposed to mean?" he asked, his voice dropping, a little edge creeping in. I walked around the table, pulling plates from the cabinet with slow, deliberate calm. "It means while you were busy planning this big reveal, I wasn't just sitting around. I knew about her," I nodded at Jessica, "and I know about the Cayman accounts, the properties in your brother's name, the way you've been hiding our money for years." I slid a plate in front of Jessica, eyes locked on Thomas. "What did you think I was, Thomas? Some clueless housewife baking cakes and waiting for you to come home?" He laughed, but it came out dry and shaky. "Jen, you're talking nonsense. You've got nothing." "Oh, I've got plenty," I shot back, my voice soft but sharp as hell. "You always hide stuff in the same spot, Thomas. That fake bottom drawer in your office, you thought I'd never find it. And your passwords? Ethan and Olivia's birthdays. You haven't changed a thing in 30 years. I cut a slice of cake and slid it toward him. I've had some real interesting chats with my lawyer and a forensic accountant. Wanna check your email? Your bank accounts? Maybe call your lawyer before you go? His face went pale, his hand trembling as he reached for his phone. I took a bite of cake, savoring the rich chocolate, feeling victory wash over me. Jessica darted her eyes between us, confusion plain as day on her pretty little face. What did you do, Thomas? She whispered, barely audible. He shoved up from the table, yanking her arm. We're outta here. This was a mistake. But as he headed for the door, I called after him, cool as ice. Oh, Thomas, I changed the locks. You'll need somewhere else to crash tonight. The door slammed behind them, leaving me alone in the dining room. I stared at the untouched cake, candles unlit, then caught my reflection in the hall mirror. Silver streaks in my brown hair. Wrinkles around my eyes, they told a story of joy and pain. For the first time in years, I saw the real Jennifer Carter staring back, not the doormat Thomas had shaped me into, but someone stronger than I'd remembered. I blew out an imaginary candle, not wishing for revenge, but for the guts to face what came next. The shock of this night wasn't the end, it was just the beginning, and I was ready to take back what was mine. The door's slam echoed through the house, hitting me like a freight train as the silence settled in. I stood there, staring at the cake I'd poured my morning into, its chocolate frosting mocking me with every untouched swirl. 30 years with Thomas Reed, and this was my payoff, a self-assured bastard waltzing in with his 27-year-old arm candy, Jessica Hayes, flashing my grandma's necklace like it was some cheap trophy. My chest burned, a wildfire of rage and hurt clawing up my throat. I wanted to scream, to hurl that damn cake at the wall, but instead, I gripped the table's edge, knuckles white, fighting to keep my head above the flood of betrayal drowning me. Thomas thought he'd crushed me. That grin, God, that arrogant grin, said it all. He'd strutted into my dining room like he owned the universe, like I was some washed-up nobody he could toss aside. I've found what I want, Jen, he'd said, his voice dripping with that overconfident tone I'd once mistaken for charm back in the 90s. He didn't just want to leave me, he wanted to humiliate me, to shove it in my face that he'd traded me for a newer model. And Jessica? She was his shiny prize, twirling that necklace like she'd hit the jackpot, oblivious to the history it carried, or maybe she just didn't give a damn. I replayed his words, she's everything you could never be. It stung like hell, cutting deeper than I'd ever admit out loud. For a split second, I felt small again, like the 22-year-old I'd been when we met, naive, starry-eyed, swallowing every smooth line he fed me. Had I really spent 3 decades building a life with a guy who'd always seen me as disposable? The thought twisted my gut, a nauseating mix of shame and fury. But then I saw his face again, how that cocky mask slipped when I'd dropped my bombshell. He didn't know I'd been digging, that I'd cracked his secrets wide open. That flicker of doubt in his eyes was my lifeline, and I clung to it. He thought he was untouchable, didn't he? Standing there in my house, damn it, with his hand on Jessica's shoulder like he owned her too. The future's what matters, he'd said, brushing off my question about the necklace like it was pocket change. That overbearing dismissal lit a match under me. He'd spent years hiding money, lying about that necklace, probably laughing behind my back while I scrubbed floors and raised Ethan and Olivia. And now he had the balls to think he could walk away scot-free, with his mistress and a first-class ticket to anywhere but here? Hell no, I let go of the table, my hands shaking as I paced the room. My mind was a mess, anger crashing into disbelief. Hurt tangling with this raw, electric need to make him pay. I'd loved him once, hadn't I? Those early days, scraping by on ramen and dreams, when he'd kiss me goodnight and promise we'd make it big someday. Where'd that guy go? Or had he ever existed? Maybe I'd been fooling myself all along, seeing a man who was never there, just a mirage of what I'd wanted him to be. The truth slapped me hard. Thomas Reed was a con, a snake in a pressed shirt, and I'd been his mark for 30 years. That necklace on Jessica's neck kept flashing in my mind, my grandma's diamonds, survivors of war and time, now dangling on some girl who probably thought history was last week's TikTok trend. Thomas didn't just steal it. He stole what it meant, handed it over like a trinket to seal his new life. I could still hear his voice, calm as you please, tomorrow, my lawyer's dropping off the papers. Like it was a done deal, like I'd just sign away everything and fade into the background. The nerve of him, thinking he could erase me that easily, it made my blood boil. But he didn't know me, not anymore. He saw the Jen who'd nodded along, who'd let his late nights and lame excuses slide, who'd baked cakes and kept quiet. He didn't see the woman I'd buried beneath all that, the one who'd tracked his lies, memorized his habits, sat up nights piecing together the puzzle he thought I'd never solve. I stopped pacing, my breath ragged, and looked at the cake again. It wasn't just dessert, it was a middle finger to his arrogance. I'd baked it for me, not him, and I'd be damned if he ruined this day completely. His overconfidence was his Achilles heel, I could feel it. That fake bottom drawer in his office, the one he thought was so clever? I'd found it months ago. Rifling through papers while he was working late again. Bank statements, property deeds, emails, he'd stashed it all there like some amateur crook. And those passwords? Ethan's birthday, Olivia's birthday, over and over, like he couldn't be bothered to get creative. I'd laughed when I cracked them, a bitter, hollow sound, because it showed how little he thought of me. He was so certain I'd never fight back, so damn full of himself he didn't even cover his tracks. I grabbed a fork, stabbed into the cake, and took another bite, the chocolate grounding me as my mind raced. He'd underestimated me, and that was his mistake. He thought he could strut out of here, leave me broken. While he jetted off with Jessica to sip my ties on some beach. But I had the upper hand now, those Cayman accounts, the hidden properties, the proof I'd copied and handed to my lawyer. He didn't know I'd been talking to pros who could unravel his web faster than he could spin it. His arrogance was a neon sign blinking I'm invincible, and I was about to flip the switch. That night, as the walls pressed in with every heartbeat, I knew one thing for sure, he'd married the wrong woman to mess with, and he was about to find out why. Thomas's self-assured face was still searing my brain as I stood there, fork in hand, the chocolate cake tasting more like ashes with every bite. That grin, he thought he'd crushed me, thought he could waltz out of my life with Jessica on his arm and my grandma's necklace dangling like a victory flag. The silence after they stormed out wasn't peace, it was a war drum pounding in my chest, louder with every passing second. I wasn't just hurt, I was pissed, a volcano of rage and betrayal ready to erupt. 30 years, and this was my reward? I'd be damned if I let him get away with it. I dropped the fork, letting it clatter on the table, and started pacing again, my sneakers squeaking on the hardwood. My mind was a tornado, spinning with his words, his lies, that dismissive shrug like I was nothing. She's everything you could never be. Jesus, it echoed in my skull, slicing through me like a rusty blade. I'd given him everything, my youth, my trust, 2 kids, and he'd tossed it all for some mid-20s fling who probably thought commitment was a gym membership. But it wasn't just Jessica, it was the necklace, the money, the whole damn charade he'd been running behind my back. I felt like a fool, and that stung worse than anything. For a moment, I let myself sink into it, the shame, the what-ifs. Had I missed the signs? Those late nights he blamed on work, the excuses I'd swallowed because I wanted to believe in us? I saw myself in flashes, the young Jen laughing at his jokes. The tired mom juggling kids and bills, the wife who'd stopped asking questions. I'd let him dim me, hadn't I? But then I stopped pacing and stood still, my breath catching. No. I wasn't the fool here, he was. He didn't know I'd been watching, waiting, building my own game plan while he played Casanova. That realization flipped a switch in me, turning the pain into something harder, something I could use. That fake drawer in his office? I'd cracked it open months ago, late one night when he was at the office again, probably screwing Jessica in some motel. Bank statements from the Caymans, deeds to properties I'd never heard of, emails to his shady brother, it was all there, a treasure map of his betrayal. And those passwords? Ethan's birthday, Olivia's birthday, like clockwork. He was so full of himself he didn't even bother mixing it up. I'd copied everything, handed it to my lawyer, and called in a forensic accountant who'd sniffed out his dirt like a bloodhound. I wasn't done, I was just getting started. I smirked, a bitter twist of my lips, and grabbed my phone off the counter. My hands were steady now, fueled by this dark, jagged energy surging through me. I wasn't gonna roll over, I was gonna hit him where it hurt. I scrolled to my lawyer's number, Linda, a no-nonsense shark who'd eat guys like Thomas for breakfast. "Hey, Linda," I said when she picked up, my voice low and tight. "It's go time." He pulled the trigger tonight, brought his girlfriend here, said he's filing tomorrow. I want everything we talked about ready to roll. Linda didn't miss a beat. Good. We've got the Cayman accounts locked down, the properties traced, and the accountant's report is airtight. He won't know what hit him. You sure you're okay, Jen? Her tone softened, but I didn't want pity, not now. I'm fine, I lied, swallowing the lump in my throat. Just make it fast. And make it hurt. I hung up, my pulse racing like I'd just run a marathon. This wasn't just about money, it was about tearing off that arrogant mask, watching him squirm when he realized I wasn't the pushover he thought, but then the doorbell rang, sharp and jarring, snapping me out of my revenge high. I froze, my heart slamming against my ribs. Thomas? Back already? I crept to the peephole, half expecting his cocky face, but it wasn't him. A guy stood there, tall, mid-40s, salt and pepper hair, looking like he'd just stepped off a construction site. Jennifer Carter? He asked when I cracked the door, his voice urgent, eyes darting like he was being watched. Yeah, who the hell are you? I snapped, my nerves frayed to the breaking point. Michael Evans. I work with Thomas at Reynolds Financial. We need to talk, now. He glanced over his shoulder, and something in his twitchy vibe made me step aside, letting him in. He didn't waste time, dropping onto my couch like he'd collapse otherwise. Look, I don't know how deep you're in, but Thomas is bad news. He's been siphoning client money, millions, through offshore accounts. I've got proof. He pulled a USB drive from his jacket, holding it out like it was a live grenade. I stared at it, my stomach twisting. You're telling me he's not just a cheating asshole, he's a crook too? My voice cracked, the weight of it slamming into me. I took the drive, my fingers trembling. Why bring this to me? Because he's dangerous, Michael said, leaning forward, eyes intense. I found this stuff weeks ago and was gonna confront him, but then someone trashed my home office. 2 days back, my brake lines were cut. He's tying up loose ends, Jen, and you're one of them. Loose ends. The words hit me like a brick. I sank into the armchair, the USB cold in my hand. Thomas wasn't just leaving me, he might want me gone. The room spun, my mind reeling between fear and fury. I'd loved him, God, I'd loved him, and now he might be plotting to kill me? It was too much, a betrayal so deep it felt like my soul was cracking open. Okay, I said finally, forcing my voice steady. What's the plan? You didn't come here just to scare me. Michael nodded. We take him down, hard. That drive's got everything, transfers, emails, the works. But we need more. There's a woman, Sarah Mitchell, in Millfield, 3 hours from here. She's tied to his past, has dirt he's been paying to keep quiet. I called her last night, she's expecting us? I raised an eyebrow, my heart still hammering. Yeah, us. You're in this now, Jen. He's not just my problem, he's yours too. We go to Sarah, get her evidence, and bury him before he buries you. I laughed, a harsh, broken sound. You're crazy. I'm not some detective, I'm a freaking mom who bakes cakes. But even as I said it, I felt that fire flare up again. Thomas thought he could erase me. Thought I'd just fade away. Screw that. I'd spent 30 years shrinking for him, now I'd grow claws. Fine, I said, standing up, the USB clenched in my fist. I'm in. But we do this my way too. Linda's already on the financials, your stuff plugs the gaps. We hit him from every angle, money, crimes, everything. He doesn't walk away from this. Michael nodded, relief flashing in his eyes, and I grabbed a duffel from the hall closet, ready to turn my pain into power. I slung the duffel over my shoulder, Michael's words, he's tying up loose ends, ricocheting in my skull like a bullet as I locked the door behind us. My kitchen, still smelling of chocolate cake, felt like a crime scene now, Thomas's overbearing voice staining every corner. 30 years with that bastard, and here I was, plotting to take him down with a guy I'd just met and a USB drive that could blow up my whole life. My hands shook, but it wasn't fear anymore, it was a jagged, electric fury, a beast clawing out of me after decades in a cage. We hit the road in Michael's beat-up Chevy, the kind of car you'd see parked outside a dive bar, not a corporate office. Keep your phone off, he said, eyes glued to the rearview mirror like he expected Thomas to pop up any second. I nodded, shoving it into my bag, my mind a mess of rage and disbelief. Thomas Reed, my Thomas, wasn't just a cheating prick, he was a crook, maybe a killer, and I'd slept next to him for half my life. How do you even process that? I'd kissed him goodnight, cooked him dinners, raised his kids, and all the while, he'd been building this house of cards, waiting to burn it down with me inside. The highway stretched out, dark and endless, headlights cutting through the night like knives. I stared out the window, my reflection a ghost in the glass, older, harder, a stranger to myself. She's everything you could never be, he'd said, and it kept slicing me open, exposing every doubt I'd buried. Had I ever been enough? Or was I just a prop in his twisted play, a doormat he'd wipe his boots on before chasing the next shiny thing? The betrayal wasn't just the affair, it was the lie of us, the life I'd thought was real. My chest ached, a hollow, gnawing pain, but beneath it, something sharper was growing, resolve. Millfield was 3 hours away, a speck of a town I'd never heard of, but it held Sarah Mitchell, some mystery woman Thomas had paid off for years. Who is she? I asked Michael, my voice rough, like I'd been screaming in my head too long. His old assistant, he said, gripping the wheel. From before you. She knows stuff he's desperate to keep buried. I tracked her down when I found the payments in his files. She's our ace. His jaw tightened, and I saw the same fire in him that was burning me up. We were both in this now, two pawns turning on the king. The car hummed along, and I dug my nails into my palms, replaying Thomas's arrogance, how he'd brushed off that necklace like it was nothing. How he'd grinned while gutting me. He thought he'd won, thought I'd just curl up and cry. Screw that. I had Linda's legal hammer, Michael's evidence, and now Sarah's secrets. I was a damn arsenal, and he didn't even know it. But the hurt still clawed at me, a voice whispering I'd failed, that I'd let him make me small. I shoved it down, hard. No more. We rolled into Millfield at dawn, a sleepy little place with a main street straight out of a Hallmark movie, cute, but eerie in the gray light. Sarah's house was a modest green bungalow by a lake, a willow tree drooping in the yard like it was mourning something. My stomach flipped as we walked up the path, the USB heavy in my pocket. The door swung open before I could knock, and there she was, Sarah Mitchell, my age, with silver-streaked hair and eyes that sized me up in a heartbeat. Jennifer, she said, her voice low and calm. And Michael. Come in. We don't have much time. Inside, the place was cozy, bookshelves, big windows, but the air crackled with tension. She led us to the kitchen, 3 mugs of coffee waiting like she'd known we'd show up. He's coming, she said, cutting straight to it. Thomas. He tracked Michael's last call. We've got maybe an hour. My heart slammed into my ribs. What? How? I stammered, panic spiking through me. He's got people, cops, tech guys, she said, handing me a flash drive. This is everything, his real name, Daniel Brooks, the fraud, the accounts. I've sent copies to the feds already. He's done, Daniel Brooks. Not Thomas Reed. My head spun, the floor tilting under me. His real name? I whispered, the words tasting like poison. 30 years with a stranger, a con man who'd faked his whole damn life. The betrayal crashed over me again, a tidal wave of grief and rage. I'd loved a ghost, built a family on sand. Tears stung my eyes, but I blinked them back. Sarah didn't need my breakdown, she nodded. Her gaze steady but soft. He paid me to disappear, 30 years ago. I was pregnant. His daughter's out there, doesn't even know him. I've got my own stakes in this. I clutched the drive, my voice shaking but fierce. Then we finish him. Now. Michael's phone buzzed, Thomas, closing in. We bolted out the back, Sarah staying to stall him, her calm bravery searing into me. I ran, the lake glinting ahead, my pain fueling every step. He'd hurt me, broken me, but I'd struck back, and he'd feel it soon. The thrum of the boat engine roared in my ears as I gunned it across the lake, water spraying my face like icy shrapnel, Thomas's furious silhouette shrinking on Sarah's dock behind me. He was there, right there, screaming my name, his voice a jagged blade cutting through the morning haze, while Michael and I sped toward freedom with Sarah's flash drive burning a hole in my pocket. My hands gripped the wheel, slick with sweat and terror, as the truth slammed into me harder than the waves. Thomas Reed wasn't real. Daniel Brooks was a fraud, a thief, a monster who'd played me for 30 years, and now he was chasing me down to bury his lies for good. My chest heaved, torn between gut-wrenching betrayal and the feral thrill of fighting back. Michael clung to the side, his face pale, shouting over the wind, faster, Jen. He's got a speedboat, he's coming. I glanced back, and there it was, a sleek, black beast tearing through the water, Thomas at the helm, his eyes locked on us like a predator. My heart jackhammered, every beat screaming, he wants me dead. The man I'd loved, the father of my kids, the guy I'd shared Thanksgiving dinners and late-night talks with, he wasn't just leaving me for Jessica, he was ready to erase me. The realization ripped me open, a raw, bleeding wound of grief and rage. How had I been so blind? The lake stretched wide, a glassy trap with nowhere to hide, and our little motorboat was no match for his. My mind raced, replaying his cocky grin from that night, she's everything you could never be, and I wanted to scream until my lungs gave out. I'd been his fool, his cover, a prop in his sick game, and now I was running for my life because I dared to fight back. But that pain, that soul-crushing hurt, fueled me too. I'd cracked his secrets, those Cayman accounts, the properties, Sarah's bombshell, and I wasn't just surviving this, I was gonna make him pay. Head for the cove. Michael yelled, pointing to a narrow inlet on the right, barely visible through the mist. I yanked the wheel, the boat lurching as we veered off, my stomach flipping like I was on a roller coaster at Six Flags. The cove was tight and rocky, a gamble, but it was our shot. Thomas's boat roared closer, the gap shrinking fast, and I could see his face now, twisted with rage, no trace of the man I'd married. My hands shook, but I gritted my teeth, shoving down the panic. You don't get to win, you bastard. We hit the cove hard, the hull scraping rocks with a sickening crunch, and I killed the engine. Out, now. I barked, leaping into ankle-deep water, Michael right behind me. We scrambled up the muddy bank, my sneakers slipping, my duffel banging against my hip. The flash drive, Sarah's proof, my weapon, was still there, and I clutched it like a lifeline. Thomas's boat screeched to a stop behind us, his voice booming, Jennifer, stop. It wasn't a plea, it was a command, cold and lethal, and it lit a fire under me. We bolted into the woods, branches clawing at my face, my breath ragged. My legs burned, but I kept going, Michael panting beside me, until we burst onto a scenic overlook, a parking lot with a family unloading picnic gear from an SUV. I must have looked wild, hair tangled, clothes soaked, but I didn't care. Thomas emerged from the trees, smoothing his jacket, that self-assured mask back on like he was just some concerned husband. Jen, honey, you're confused, he said, his voice syrupy, stepping toward me. Let's talk this out. The family stared, confused, but I wasn't buying his act anymore. His name's Daniel Brooks, I snapped, loud enough for them to hear, my voice shaking with fury. He's a fraud, stole millions, faked his life. I've got proof. Thomas's eyes darkened, his facade cracking, but before he could grab me, tires squealed, a cop car rolled in, followed by Michael's Chevy. Michael stepped out with 2 officers, his face grim but triumphant. "It's over, Brooks," he said, and I saw the cuffs glint as they closed in. Thomas froze, his shoulders slumping, and for one fleeting second, I saw the real him, desperate, cornered, a dying man with nothing left. "I loved you, Jen," he muttered, almost too quiet to hear. But I shook my head, my voice like steel. "Love without truth isn't love." They hauled him away, and I stood there, trembling, the weight of 30 years lifting off me like a storm breaking. 6 months later, I'm on a Maui beach, the sunset painting the sky in oranges and pinks, my grandma's necklace back around my neck where it belongs. Thomas is Daniel, died in jail, cancer eating him up faster than the courts could convict him. Sarah told her daughter, Emily, the truth. We're meeting next month, piecing together this fractured family. Jessica's got an art gallery in Portland now, and we talk sometimes, 2 women scarred by the same liar, rebuilding on our own terms. I run my fingers over the diamonds, feeling their history, my history. I think about the Jen I was, dimmed, doubting, defined by his lies, and the Jen I am now, forged in fire, free not just from him, but from the shadows I'd let him cast. It's not just about winning, it's about reclaiming the pieces of myself I'd lost along the way. So here's my question for you. What would you do if the life you built turned out to be a lie? Would you crumble, or fight like hell to take it back? Tell me, because I've lived it, and I'm damn curious what you'd choose.